The Midwestern region of the United States has many notable states, with two including the bordering states of Michigan and Ohio. Both are considered Rust Belt states, ones that have had or still have a large manufacturing sector. But the two states also have differences with each other. Let's compare both in this month's State Comparison Series episode. Michigan and Ohio were both admitted to the Union on January 26, 1837 and March 1, 1803, respectively. Although Ohio was retroactively admitted to the Union on August 7, 1953, due to some technicalities in the paperwork from when the state was originally admitted. Michigan was originally inhabited by various Native American tribes, including the Ottawa and the Potawatomi. French explorers were among the first Europeans to travel through Michigan. The French established trading posts and missions, and in 1701, Antoine de la Mothe Cadillac founded Fort Pontchartrain du Detroit. Following the French and Indian War, Michigan came under British control. After the American Revolution, Michigan was ceded to the United States as part of the Treaty of Paris. Michigan became part of the Northwest Territory in 1787 and later Indiana Territory. The 19th century saw significant growth in Michigan's lumber and mining industries. The opening of the Erie Canal in 1825 and the development of railroads spurred economic growth and population influx. By the early 20th century, Michigan became the center of the flourishing automobile industry, led by companies such as Ford, General Motors, and Chrysler in Detroit, earning the city the nickname Motor City. The state faced economic challenges during the Great Depression, but the automobile industry played a crucial role in the American war effort during World War II. Michigan's economy faced significant challenges with the decline of the automobile industry and the Great Recession. However, efforts to diversify the economy and revitalize Detroit have been ongoing. In recent years, Michigan has worked to diversify its economy, focusing on technology, healthcare, and education. Ohio was originally inhabited by various Native American tribes, including the Shawnee and Miami. Like Michigan, French explorers were among the first Europeans to explore the Ohio region. The area was part of the French territory of New France. Following the French and Indian War, the region came under British control as part of the Treaty of Paris. Ohio's fertile land and strategic location along the Ohio River facilitated its development as an agricultural hub. The state's economy diversified with the arrival of the Industrial Revolution, becoming a center for manufacturing and transportation. Ohio played a significant role in the Civil War, contributing substantial numbers of troops and resources to the Union effort. The early 20th century saw Ohio become a major industrial state, with cities like Cleveland, Cincinnati, and Akron becoming centers for steel, rubber, and manufacturing industries. Like much of the nation, Ohio faced economic challenges during the Great Depression. The state's industrial base was crucial during World War II, supporting the war effort through the production of military goods. The post-war period brought prosperity and suburban growth. However, the late 20th century saw economic challenges with the decline of heavy industry and manufacturing. In recent years, Ohio has worked to diversify its economy, focusing on sectors such as finance, healthcare, education, and technology. Currently, Michigan and Ohio are both in the top 10 of states with population nationwide, making them important states economically and politically. In today's State Comparison Series episode, we are going to compare Michigan and Ohio. The video will focus on both the physical and human geographies. In terms of physical geography, we will review three main factors: the geomorphology, meteorology, and ecology, while with human geography, we'll review four main factors: the demography, urbanization, economy, and geopolitics. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home, if you enjoy learning more about geography and earth science. Let's get started. The geomorphology of both Michigan and Ohio are similar in that both states don't have incredibly high elevations, but there are some notable differences. Lots of people may not know, but Michigan is the 11th largest state by land size thanks to the Upper Peninsula and multiple bodies of water on the sides of the state. Lower Michigan is mostly flat with some rolling hills, but the average elevation is still higher than some low-lying eastern states thanks to its inland location. Heading further north, Michigan's elevation begins to gradually increase to over 1,000 feet in some areas. The Upper Peninsula, which is extremely rural, is home to the state's highest elevation, Mount Arvon, at a height of 1,979 feet. The three Great Lakes, Superior, Michigan, and Huron, surround the upper three-fourths of the state, while Lake St. Clair, part of the Great Lakes system, connects to Lake Huron to the north by means of the St. Clair River, and connects to Lake Erie to the south by means of the Detroit River. Ohio is smaller in size than Michigan, but still ranks 34th nationwide. Like Lower Michigan, most of Ohio is pretty flat, with some rolling hills, and the average elevation, because of the state's inland location, is higher. Northern Ohio has a shoreline with Lake Erie, the second smallest of the Great Lakes. Heading southeastward, Ohio's elevation starts to become more rugged and hilly because of its proximity to the Appalachian Mountains. Despite that, the highest elevation isn't located there, but rather in west central Ohio. This peak is known as Campbell Hill and has an elevation of 1,549 feet, making it the 8th lowest elevation out of the 50 states. Hydrologically, the Ohio River traverses the southern part of the state and ultimately ends in the Mississippi River. Meteorologically, Michigan and Ohio have a lot of commonalities in that they both feature humid continental climates with hot and humid summers and cold and sometimes snowy winters. But there are some differences. Much of southern Michigan has a temperate climate which features all 4 seasons, but snowfall may be heavily dependent on location. While Detroit does get 45 inches of snow a year, it's a lot less than western Michigan cities such as Grand Rapids. Since Grand Rapids is on the windward side of Lake Michigan, it gets copious amounts of lake effect snow, which averages nearly 80 inches a year. Further north, Michigan's climate becomes somewhat colder. The Upper Peninsula has delightful summers with not too many frequently hot days. However, winters are usually long and cold with lots of snowfall, especially in cities like Marquette, which sits on the windward side of Lake Superior. In this area, it's not uncommon to see snow as late as early May and as early as October. Ohio has a humid continental climate, but since it's further south than Michigan, experiences somewhat milder conditions. Along Lake Erie, in cities such as Cleveland, lake effect snow is abundant, and the city receives 64 inches of snow a year. More inland and southward, cities such as Columbus and Dayton see all 4 seasons, but snowfall is lower. In Cincinnati, in the southwestern portion of the state, wintertime temperatures aren't that cold, and snowfall averages around 23 inches a year. Also, the city and its surrounding areas are on the border of the humid continental and humid subtropical climatic zones. During the summer months, Ohio can get heat waves, sending temperatures into the 90s and even 100s. The ecology of Michigan and Ohio are somewhat similar in that both states have temperate broadleaf deciduous forest, but some differences are there, especially in the Upper Peninsula. Much of Lower Michigan has primarily deciduous forest, with tree species such as sugar maple, oak, beech, and elm. These forests are home to white-tailed deer, black bears, coyotes, various bird species like woodpeckers and owls, and numerous insects and amphibians. In addition, the Great Lakes that surround Michigan support a vast amount of aquatic life, such as trout, salmon, bass, and perch, along with a variety of invertebrates, aquatic plants, and waterfowl. The rural Upper Peninsula of Michigan is made up mostly of a mixture of deciduous and coniferous forest. Here, animals such as white-tailed deer, black bears, moose, and gray wolf adapt to the colder environment. Ohio's ecology is also temperate, similarly to Lower Michigan. The state's forests are predominantly deciduous, with regions of mixed forest, including trees such as oak, hickory, and ash. Forests in Ohio are home to white-tailed deer, raccoons, foxes, and squirrels. The northern border of Ohio along Lake Erie features beaches, dunes, and coastal wetlands. Coastal areas support unique plant species and serve as critical habitats for migratory birds and various fish species. Let's now talk about the human geographies of Michigan and Ohio, starting with demography. As mentioned before, both states rank in the top 10 for population nationwide. Michigan has a current population of 10,037,261 residents, a 0.4% decrease from 2020. Over the last 4 decades, there hasn't been much of a large increase in Michigan's population, and in fact, there was also a decrease between 2000 and 2010. Because of manufacturing outsourcing, the state has experienced population stagnation and sometimes a decrease. Geographically, much of Michigan's population lives in the southern tier of the state, while northern mainland Michigan and the Upper Peninsula are sparsely populated. Racially, Michigan is a majority white state at 68.7%, and blacks are the largest minorities at 16.8%. Much of the black population lives within the urban areas, especially in Detroit, which has nearly 80%. The state also has sizable minority populations of Hispanics and Asians at 7% and 3.9% respectively. Ethnically, Michigan is quite diverse and has sizable European populations such as Germans, Polish, Dutch, and Scandinavians. Also, Dearborn, a suburb of Detroit, has one of the largest Arab populations, with most of them being of Lebanese ethnicity. Currently, Ohio has a total population of 11.8 million people. Unlike Michigan, Ohio never saw any decreases in terms of the US Census, but the population has remained relatively stable or slightly increased for the last 4 decades. Unlike Michigan, Ohio has more of a spread out population, with large concentrations in and around Cleveland in the northeast, Columbus in the central part of the state, and Cincinnati in the southwestern part. Racially, Ohio is also a majority white state at 75.9%, and blacks are the largest minority group with 12.3%. But Hispanics and Asians make up less than 5% of the state population each. Ethnically, Europeans such as Germans, Irish, English, Italians, and Polish make up the 5 highest ethnic groups within the state. On to urbanization, both Michigan and Ohio have large cities within, but some of them have seen dramatic population decreases due to manufacturing outsourcing. Michigan's largest city is Detroit, with a population of 633,218, but this number was 1.8 million in 1950, making it the 4th largest city at the time. Metro Detroit has around 3.7 million people and has remained relatively stable for the last 5 decades. Much of Detroit's population loss stemmed from outsourcing of manufacturing and the automotive industry. In recent years, the city has tried to revitalize itself and has made some strides. However, there are still many parts of the city that are still severely decayed. Grand Rapids in western Michigan is second in population with nearly 200,000 people, followed by Warren and Sterling Heights, both suburbs of Detroit, and Ann Arbor. Michigan has a well-connected network of highways and roads. Some interstates that traverse the state include I-94, I-69, I-96, and I-75, which connects lower Michigan to the Upper Peninsula via the Mackinac Bridge and continues northward to the Canadian border. Another notable transportation network is the Detroit-Windsor Tunnel, which connects Michigan to Ontario. Ohio has several notable large cities, with Columbus, the capital, being the largest with 905,748 people. The city has seen rapid growth in the last few decades and is also centralized within the state. Cleveland is second in population with 372,624 residents. However, like Detroit, the city has seen a large population decrease as its population peaked in 1950 at 914,000. But Greater Cleveland is the largest metropolitan area in Ohio with 2.1 million people. Cincinnati is third in population with 309,317 people, followed by Toledo, a city in northwestern Ohio, and Akron, a suburb of Cleveland. Ohio has many highways and roads traversing the state. I-90 and I-80 connect with each other in Elyria and make up the Ohio Turnpike. Other interstates that make their way through the state include I-70, another long highway connecting Utah to Maryland, I-71, I-76, and I-75, which also runs from Michigan to the Canadian border, but runs southward all the way to Miami, Florida. Economically, both Michigan and Ohio are in a region known as the Rust Belt, a historic manufacturing area of the U.S. extending from Missouri to the northeast. Before the 1960s, Both states had very large industrial sectors which employed thousands of blue-collar workers. But this changed afterwards when American corporations started to outsource their labor to poorer nations. Currently, Michigan has a state GDP of $658 billion and a per capita income of around $65,000 a year. While lots of manufacturing was outsourced, the state still has a robust manufacturing sector, producing a range of goods from automobiles to machinery and food products. The state also has a significant agricultural output, being a leading producer of cherries, apples, and blueberries. Michigan's technology and healthcare sectors have seen growth bolstered by research institutions and universities. Tourism, driven by natural attractions like the Great Lakes and recreational activities, contributes significantly to the economy. Companies that are headquartered in Michigan include General Motors, the largest U.S. automaker of brands such as Chevy, Buick, Cadillac, and GMC, Ford Motor Company, another large automaker which makes brands such as Ford and Lincoln, Whirlpool Corporation, a maker of home appliances such as ranges, refrigerators, and washers and dryers, and Kellogg's, one of the largest American producers of cereal products. As of this year, Ohio has a state GDP of nearly $700 billion and a per capita income of around $59,000 a year. Similarly to Michigan, Ohio is a manufacturing powerhouse, but now it's very diversified. The state is a major hub for the automotive and aerospace industries, which shows its shift from the secondary to high-skilled tertiary sector. Agriculture plays a crucial role, with Ohio being a leading producer of soybeans, corn, and poultry. Additionally, the state has a growing healthcare and biotechnology sector supported by institutions like the Cleveland Clinic. Companies headquartered in Ohio include Procter & Gamble, a large multinational corporation that makes numerous household products, Macy's, a well-known American department store chain, Goodyear Tire & Rubber, a maker of tires for automobiles, trucks, and airplanes, and the J.M. Smucker Company, a manufacturer of food and beverage products. Geopolitically, Michigan and Ohio have played important roles in American politics due to their heartland locations and their history as swing states. The first presidential election Michigan voted in was the 1836 election, in which the state gave its electoral votes to winning Democrat Martin Van Buren. But in the 1840 election, the state gave its electoral votes to winning Whig candidate William Henry Harrison. Michigan voted Democrat in all elections until 1856, when the state switched to voting for Republican John Fremont, an anti-slavery candidate. From that election all the way to 1912, Michigan voted Republican, but in the 1912 election, the state gave its electoral votes to previous Republican president and then progressive candidate Theodore Roosevelt. Then until the early 1930s, Michigan voted for all Republican presidential candidates, but voted for Democrat Franklin Roosevelt in 1932, 1936, and 1944, but not in 1940. From the 1950s to the late 1980s, Michigan went back and forth between Republican and Democratic candidates. But then in 1992, Michigan gave its electoral votes to winning Democratic candidate Bill Clinton. Since then, Michigan has been more regarded as a safe Democrat state. However, in 2016, winning Republican candidate Donald Trump won the state by a margin of only 0.23% over Democrat Hillary Clinton, but by 2020, winning Democratic candidate Joe Biden won the state by 2.78%. But for the 2024 presidential election, Michigan is again seen as a swing state, as polls show the race is pretty much a dead heat. In the U.S. Senate, Michigan has 2 Democratic senators, Debbie Stabenow and Gary Peters, and in the House of Representatives, 7 Democrats and 6 Republicans. On the state level, the governor is Democrat Gretchen Whitmer, who was elected in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. Ohio is unique in that 7 U.S. presidents were born there, the second highest nationwide, and all of them were late 19th century and early 20th century Republicans. Ohio's first presidential election was in 1804, when the state gave its electoral votes to winning Democratic Republican candidate Thomas Jefferson. All the presidential elections the state voted in the early 1800s were for Democratic Republicans, until the 1828 election, when the state gave its electoral votes to winning Democratic candidate Andrew Jackson. During the mid-1800s, Ohio voted initially for Whig candidates, but voted for Democrats in 1848 and 1852. In 1856, Ohio gave its electoral votes to losing Republican candidate John Fremont. The state started to become a place where abolitionists thrived, those against slavery. Because of that, from the 1860s all the way to the 1910s, Ohio gave its electoral votes to all Republicans. But this streak was broken in 1912 and 1916 when it gave its electoral votes to winning Democratic candidate Woodrow Wilson. From that time until now, Ohio slowly became an important swing state for presidential elections, being a crucial battleground where candidates campaign. In the last 2 decades, Ohio has went back and forth between Republicans and Democrats, with the state giving its electoral votes both times to George W. Bush, Barack Obama, and Donald Trump. For 2024, some political analysts believe that Ohio may be a safe win for Republicans, with recent polling showing Donald Trump in the lead. In terms of the U.S. Senate, Ohio has 1 Democratic Senator, Sherrod Brown, and 1 Republican Senator, J.D. Vance. And in the House of Representatives, 9 Republicans, 5 Democrats, and 1 vacancy. On the state level, Ohio has a Republican governor, Mike DeWine, who was elected in 2018 and re-elected in 2022. Michigan and Ohio will continue to be important Midwestern states linked to the economics and geopolitics of the United States. However, in the next few decades, there may be a population shift to more Sunbelt states on account of baby boomers retiring and moving to places with better weather. This may ultimately decrease the populations of both states, thus lessening their geopolitical influence in presidential elections if they both lose electoral college votes. But this trend will likely be slow rather than quick. That concludes today's State Comparison Series episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to leave your feedback, please do so in the comment section below. And if you like this video, you like my other content, so be sure to subscribe to my channel, Our World, Our Planet, Our Home. Until next time!